back to the Root Cause podcast. Today I've got Rachel, but Rachel, today we've got somebody who has really had a wilder past than you.
I know. I thought that was going to be impossible until I met this fella sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, she's done some France stuff and Korea. What else?
Just pretty much walking out the door is an adventure for me.
Pretty good adventure. So, but anyway, today we have Mark Dodd you're from Indiana, but you've lived all over, and today you're in Northern Ohio. Is that correct?
I'm in Northwest Ohio. That's where I live right now.
And you enjoy that?
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's really a good part of the United States. They really are very concerned about their agriculture and their food quality and their water quality, and it all comes together kind of up there.
So I'll just kind of give you a brief bio, Rachel. So give me a grade when I get done. So you've been on a large swine farm. Y'all had a lot of pigs, corn, soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, and you got a Purdue education.
Got a Purdue education. One of my good friends who just passed away, Gary Pennell, he always said, always be a student. And even though you have a degree, you always need to be a student, and you need to always learn and retrain yourself.
Yep. So yesterday was a learning day for me, Rachel, and I learned enough. Yesterday, I'm going to take the rest of the week off. And
I feel the same. Yeah, yesterday, Mark said you drank from the fire hose today, and that was a really good way to put it because we learned a lot.
We did, yeah. So in 1994, you started and what everybody at the time did, they wanted to make yield maps. That's right?
Right. So I started a precision agriculture business called Precision Partners in Hope, Indiana. That was where my family farm was. That's where I grew up. I started it thinking that site-specific GPS, using GPS and doing variable rate in P&K was going to be our savior to modern agriculture. That's right, and that's also wrong too. We did level out the NPK requirements for the soil, but the big bang for the buck that people really saw response to was when we started variable rating lime.
Yeah.
Get that pH straightened out, and then all things start working better.
And you sold that business in 2010?
Sold it in 2010. My son took it over, and he relaunched it in Ohio, and he did very, very well with it. A lot of good producers in that part of Ohio, and it really became very profitable for his producers because he brought value to the table.
And then you went and started a coffee shop. Is that right?
Yeah, I had to disconnect myself a little bit from agriculture and the situations that was at my family farm. So I went to the Virgin Islands, and I built a coffee shop. And that was a good reset for my life and for my personality and gaining confidence in myself. And it kind of taught me that I can be in somebody else's culture, and I can adapt and create business, but also create positive value, bring something back to that community.
You're not even a coffee drinker before then.
You're right. I didn't really care for coffee then, and but I would do odd things. My mother was really good at making homemade ice cream, so I got her.
Yeah.
So I got her recipe, and I started making homemade ice cream at the coffee shop, and it became really an island favorite.
Okay.
Just simple things.
I can see how that would happen. I'm a big fan of ice cream and coffee. But on the homemade ice cream, what was your favorite flavor that your mom made?
Oh, she would make vanilla, of course, because that's kind of the go-to thing. But during strawberry season, we would make we'd put strawberries on it. My brother, he always made homemade ice cream a lot and cut up strawberries and put it in there, and you can do anything with it. It's kind of like what we're doing, today, talking about different recipes of this certain thing, and I really enjoyed that. But I kind of got I got creative with it, because they're big rum drinkers. I'd put rum with it and call it a certain name, like Better Than a Man ice cream,
Yeah.
or Jolly ice cream,
Rum for your life.
rum for my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that led you to working for one of the world's largest agricultural producers.
Right. I sold the coffee shop, came back to Ohio at the time, and helped my son relaunch the precision agriculture company. Um, and then I got this strange call from the ability to go to Russia, and I was agriculture director of a large farm there, and we started the world's largest purebred Angus herd. So I really had an influence on about 2 million acres. So everything's very, very big in Russia. And we started the world's largest purebred Angus herd with 50 American cowboys. And what's going on in Russia and America, they're very close. And media's kind of taught us to hate what they're doing, and that doesn't need to be done. The cultures are, and you will probably confess to this, that you go to other countries, grassroots people are very kind.
100% of the time.
Right.
And they're easy to spot out too, because they're the ones that, in South Korea, I was lost, and they've got a different map system, and the grassroots people around me, they could see that look of confusion on my face. And though we didn't speak the same language, they were coming up and trying to help me the best they could. That's a grassroots person.
Right. And I think the Russian culture is very much like that. I didn't know hardly any Russian. I knew enough to get around town, but never a conversation. But they took me in, but I also looked like the stranger that's probably from another country.
Yeah, you look like Jimmy Buffett on vacation or something over there.
Right. And, I had my head shaved most of the time when I was over there, and I wore a leather jacket, so they thought I was undercover CIA. So
yeah.
it made everybody kind of think that I was a badass, but I wasn't.
You are. Anybody that, works for the government, it was trusted by a government to manage agriculture. That's a big thing.
So something that Russia, we're not diving into what we again going off script. But something that Russia does that I wish America would do is they celebrate agriculture.
Mm.
They have harvest days, and it's a town celebration. And it's, bands and choirs and pubs and outdoor events. And then they have also planting days, or plow days, they called it. And two times a year, and they just roll out the hospitality, and it's so much fun. And I have a slide in my presentation where the agri holdings will have 100 combines. I had 115 combines on my project, but they would bring the priest out, and he would bless the combine. And I always made the comment, I used to own a combine like that before. It needed blessing.
You blessed it. Yeah.
So they just want to bless it so they can have a safe and productive harvest.
I really appreciate their spiritual link to agriculture.
Yes. So one of the things that's interesting in Russia, when you go to a store to buy food, and maybe you're looking for potato, a root crop, potato, a beet, a carrot, something that comes out of the soil. It all has the dirt on it, and they take that vegetable and they put it in their hands, and they get the dirt off of it in their hands, and they smell it, and they say, "This is good because it comes from a healthy soil by just the way it smells."
So they're getting the biology from the soil in their system.
Right.
Yeah.
And even having it on your hands Ryan Noss, he makes comments of that as we are too clean.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a vegetable from the grocery store with dirt on it, there's different sprays and things that you need to soak it in, and you've got to wear your gloves. I've seen it all. Just don't let it be dirty.
And a lot of times you'll see the eggs that you buy. So a dozen eggs in Russia is 10, not 12.
Okay.
And there'll be a little speck of chicken poop there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother them.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be interested in dirty eggs, but
Brown eggs.
yeah.
Brown eggs.
Yep. So, I mean, your perspective there from a production standpoint, you were a corn beans Midwest guy. You wake up, you're in Russia on a 8.5% organic matter soil.
8.5% organic matter range 35, 45 inches of rainfall a year, kind of on the same coordinates as the southern Canada. Light units are just tremendous because of the sun.
So you're on a garden spot.
It was a garden. It's called Chernesium soil, and Jim Martindale's moved over in that area right now. He's the owner of Curse Buster, and he's just going to start making the Curse Buster for Russian agriculture. And he'll do quite well there because it's one of the things that they need to do is they have a lot of different biology in that 8.5% organic matter soil, and they just really need to make sure it comes alive. So it's not unusual for them to be mow, board, and plow sometimes twice a year, and that's just their culture. And they, I kind of got in trouble twice. One of them was I was told that I couldn't do no-till and cover cropping or reduced tillage because the culture says that we want the soil completely black when it's time to plant corn or soybeans or sunflower. Had a lot of sunflower. And we'd like to see that. So they like to see that dark green color mixed in with that dark black soil. It's just pleasing.
Yeah. So I guess one perspective I have as an American, we don't agree with Russia on anything really, but at the same time, we all are just trying to live, raise our families, retire, and be happy, no matter where you're at on the earth. It's so I do. So their grocery stores have some dirt in them, huh?
Yeah. Their grocery stores, there is no preservatives in their vegetables. So there's a lot of grocery stores, but their vegetables are just so much more tasteful, and people are healthy because of it.
I was about to ask, what is the health scene in Russia?
They're very much into holistic type medicines, meaning that they use certain kind of fruits, certain kind of vegetables in a certain kind of mix. Usually it comes in with a little vodka as a carrier. And they also drink a lot of green tea in the morning, a lot of soups. It's this complex recipes, diet that they have, but they also walk a lot. And you see people still smoke a lot of cigarettes, but you don't see anybody really overweight or has got lung cancer problems.
They seem to be more intentional with their food. I don't think that America is intentional at all with their food because we want the fast pass. We want the protein shake. We want the quick little capsule that's got all the nutrients in it that a plant could have, but that plant's got dirt on it. So that's nasty. So let's put it in a capsule.
There's a McDonald's that rolled into the town that I lived in of 300,000, and they were real popular for about 2 weeks. And then they struggled to even make a dent in changing the diet. And people caught on. They didn't feel good. And every time that I go to Russia, I feel better. People that was on my team, they didn't have allergies that has allergies in America, or hay fever. They didn't experience that in Russia, and they have so much more pollen.
Do you think that the lack of allergies correlates to how much diversity is in the soil because it's no-till?
Well, not everything's no-till there.
You
The
said it's
out
mainly conventional.
it's mainly conventional. I did a little no-till there, but I did a lot of reduced tillage, I guess you'd say. Used a lot of Salford tillage tools, and that's I had limited supply. Um, Deep rippers, but I got them converted more from called an Amazon company that has planters that's reliant on being able to have no trash, a lot of conventional type tillage, into a reduced till situation. So I started buying John Deere planters, Kinsey planters that are over there. There's some other knockoff variants. Bonderstadt, I think, is got a planter. Horse got a really nice planter.
Yeah.
Um, and then they're coming on strong in America. So I really enjoyed that. But some of the principles that they were using um, in Russia, my dad was doing when I was a little kid. And one of the things that my dad did was when we had the sows in the pastures, the backside of the hill where the sow always rooted a kind of a nest, and there may be 10 sows in there, and dad would throw straw in that nest, that hole, and they would burrow in there and they'd have their baby pig. And my dad would take a pitchfork, and every March he would take that dry pack manure off and he would go into the soil underneath that and pick that soil up and take it back to the shop and sift it out and spread it out so it'll dry. And then he would take the soybeans and he would use it as an inoculant.
What is an inoculant?
Inoculant is just an organic form of a product that helps stimulate the ability to put on nodules of the soybeans.
Okay.
I mean, we use inoculant, that term, in a lot of different areas, but mycorrhizal fungi, those kinds of things, enters that plant root and helps it fix nitrogen. But that inoculation that he was using there, he knew that it worked. And but he didn't know how. He didn't know the terms that we know now. So we have the word PGRs, plant growth regulators. That's in there. We have minerals. We have organic enzymes. We have secondary metabolites. All those kinds of things are in there. He just knew that it worked. So that's what we did. So he really always had really good soybeans. This was before the inoculant craze started coming on. And it worked very well. And he had less weeds. His weeds was easier to kill.
So I guess your time there, you took in a lot of your past, your childhood versus how they're doing it, and then you end up, I guess you end up married,
Yeah.
and yeah, you knew enough Russian to get married, so that probably helped you. But then you came back to the States, working on kind of what I've always thought, that Russia produced their food and sold their phosphorus, sold their minerals, and really worked on that more on a holistic basis because they got the 8.5% organic matter. Their soils are easier to give up, but so you come back here to try to teach American farmers how to get their soils to run the nutrient cycle.
Right. So I come back to America and I started working with more of these biological principles. I spent 2 years in California with a company, and we're making these products that stimulate and feed the microbiome. And what we were producing had an insatiable appetite with the volatile fatty acids that's in the salmon, uh, that it really was a fungi dominant food source. So in vegetable production in California, because something's there all the time, something's growing all the time, they do want to switch to a more of a biologically based type approach in agronomy. but sometimes they just can't get over themselves because the chemistry companies are so aggressive with those people, where they have um, a lot of money that you don't understand, kind of going under the table to some of these decision makers. So when you come in with the biology companies, we're not big. We're just small companies. We can't afford that. So we're performance based. So I went there, and I was actually working with a good friend of mine, Jim, who has his finger on around 50,000 acres of vegetables, and most of that was strawberries. And if you know anything about strawberries, it will respond to a stimuli or negatively or positively within hours. So there's no time for testing. So you really got to have good observation skills on what you want to do. Maybe you need to have a little more zinc in with that biology. Maybe you need to have they were working a lot with different nematicides at that time, and we transitioned them off of using chloropictrin, which is a very toxic gas that kills nematodes, but also kills all biology. So you have a sterile environment, and you've got to re-inoculate the soil to get that soil to function again, so these strawberries can grow more naturally.
If this is if it can kill all biology, how is it? I guess what I'm trying to say, what's the word that you just used? You said it is sterile. So it seems like it's a really chemically strong thing to kill so much, but then it's sterile. So does that mean that after everything's gone, that too is gone and something can grow from it, or are there remnants in the soil?
Soil biology is very forgiving.
Okay.
You just got to help it along. Mother Nature takes care of herself. She's never went against her own principles of nature. And if you have the right soil biology out there with the right microbial food, you can really accelerate these soil biology principles. But we, as a culture anymore with agriculture, we kill off everything that we're trying to improve. And we just can't get over ourselves. I got producers that just cannot use fungicides. They just can't go to bed at night.
Yeah.
Well, this fungicides can be very detrimental to what we're trying to build to make it naturally function.
So let's talk about what you're here for and how I met Mark Dodd, and through an acquaintance, Dave Swain. That's how we met the first time. Then you sent me this email with these crop plans, and I thought, well, this man's really up in the clouds. And but then as I read on it, it's really a principle based thing, and your objective with Ag One, that's your company, that's your why today, isn't it?
That's my why. I've been in agriculture all my life. I think.
Well, you was in the coffee shop, but I guess that's agriculture.
Well, even then, there was a 6-cow dairy at that island, and they made homemade ice cream, and I'd always go over there and talk to them.
They know how to reel you in.
Yeah.
Just throw some homemade ice cream somewhere and Mark's going to show up.
Yes. So we were comparing recipes. Anyway, mine was still better. But I did use their milk. That's all I wanted to do, was their whole milk. What's your question again, Caleb?
So Ag One.
Oh, Ag One.
So today, your passion for Ag One and your why, and what's drove you to Trenton, Tennessee twice in 2 weeks?
Well, you don't meet people with like minds very often, like you and I and Rachel.
No, Rachel ain't like us.
Hey, but I can come down sometimes and hang out there. Or go up and hang out there. I mean, you've...
So, I work with a very unique group of entrepreneurs who has their own companies. and you think about this agronomy shift that we're having in agriculture, what slows it down? What's the obstacles? Well, we got to get over those obstacles. So the obstacles for me is education and training, um, loyalty, trust of your grower, proving out a system. Um, so who slows that down? Academia is probably one of the biggest ones. We've not been taught right, but we've been taught wrong.
Mhm. Do you think that could be strategic?
Yes, it's still strategic, Rachel. As I've connected with some of the larger universities, there's no money in uh, researching these agronomy principles. It's pounds on the ground. Dave Swain's favorite topic. It's pounds on the ground, and I understand that from a business standpoint. But if ag retail could shift their model into a more of a biological principle approach and can use us as entrepreneurs as part of their business model and disconnect themselves from universities and from other large big ag entities, that would help us producers as a producer a lot. Because what I'm doing with Ag One, so these agronomy disconnects, I call it, we're trying to do podcasts like this, but also be able to learn about these products in one database and also be able to take your SAP samples, your metagenomic samples, these high level diagnostic tools, and put them in one server where we can make a high confidence recommendation on what biomarkers are in the soil. So some of the things that I've did the last several years was I've been working with Rise Bio, Josh Toll, with doing these metagenomics tests, and we're finding out there's a lot of different biomarkers out there in the soil that a lot of these biological companies are not addressing. This would work good if you had this kind of bacillus in this kind of ratio with these different kinds of families. Working with Elevate Ag, Brad Forkner, Armin Miller of Elevate Ag, Brad Forkner of Nutrient Management Specialist, and Dave Olson of Sustainable Growing Solutions. They're my go-to team. They know how to blend, how to mix, how these things are in proportions that produces a certain outcome. So with Ag One, for lack of a better term, it's a digital agronomy database, and go to www.ag1growers.com and just put your name in there, and you'll have access to the portal. But not everybody's going to get access. I need to know you. I'm not here to be scrutinized or there's too many people out here they're not helping us a bit. They're out here to judge and to say they got a better way. I'll listen, but it's not a freedom like platform like a Google. So what I'm trying to do is streamline that what you're wanting to learn to become better at agriculture into one system and be able to create an environment that we can talk to each other. That you? That is me. Sorry. And we can all talk together and we can bio-verify, I call it, product performance. Because what I'm seeing is not all these products got what's in the jug, and a lot of them do not perform very well. There is some good products out there, don't get me wrong, but you got to feed the microbial community, and you got to feed it a certain.
So today here, we've done a lot of testing, and we're 95% bacteria, at best, most of the time beginning. But we've been on a journey for a while, so our farm has improved. But it's we didn't get here overnight, Mark. So we're not going to get out of it overnight, are we?
It's going to take a while. A good friend of mine that is a dairy consultant for select sires. So his one job is to sell bull semen to dairies. How would you do that as a person?
I could come up with a million ways to do that. There's so many puns I could work with to market that.
But if you want to sell semen to a dairy, you've got to know about genetics, where they're at today,
The climate.
their climate, their facilities, their cow comfort, their labor load, their rations, their diet. You know, you got to bring in more conversations than this semen will do these things for your cows. You create an environment that solves problems. It's just not one thing that's going to do it. But to express the genetic quality of this semen that he is trying to tell you that you need to start using, you're going to have to change all these other things to get the maximum genetic expression. And he's pretty much got 100% success rate doing that. But it's about that relationship that he's
It seems he's connecting with the source of his product. He knows the in and the out, and he's intentionally studying them and connecting with them. And I think the disconnect here is that people they don't want to critically think out a solution. They want to buy a solution, and that leads to the moron theory. You put more on, you put more on, you put more on, you're a moron. Because you could have just seen for yourself what that is, like your company does. You go through and it tells you your product performance. But with that, do you link in product prescription? So you can tell what you're lacking and maybe express what is needed.
You're right, Rachel. It's about these things like genetics, cow comfort, the ration, workload, what kind of facilities they have. It's that way in agronomy. There's not one product that'll do everything. It may do something, but sometimes these products does something 1 year positive, and then it doesn't go anywhere after that. It's because we've upset that microbiome. We're trying to get into a better fungi to bacteria relationship. I always say 1-to-1 is ideal, but I've never seen that. Maybe in a forest, but I or something like that. You know, I have a customer that's 1 to 19,000, and he's still putting on nitrogen NPK fungicides. Where's he going with this? And this is irrigated soil, so he is pounding the water into it every day, and he can't put enough water on. This crop is starving, and it's really drove his cost up and his yields lower.
Yeah. So I guess that's the stage of American agriculture where we are. I've told some people we're one bridge away from losing agriculture, row crop agriculture here in America because of the profitability crisis, which it hadn't just started. I would say in my 30 years, we've been below the cost production half the time, over the time. So what are our options here? What's Rachel, we got to take a different route because the one we're on isn't working too good, is it?
I mean, I'm not true to this. I'm new to this. But from what I've seen, I would say, yeah, we need to take a different route. But I think that before we go on a different route, we need to look at the ground we're standing on. Like, I think we're being blindly led down paths of promises for production and performance when in reality, we it needs our attention. We've got to think about it. We've got to care about it. And there's a kind of a lack of a care. And I think that the less you care, the worse you do and the worse your product does, because I'm a big believer in energy. And I think in Russia, how their health is good and their livestock's treated well. I see it kind of like a Russian doll, you know. These cows are consuming really good nutrients, and then the person consumes the cow, and then, you know, the food chain. But at the center of it, what are you consuming, and what is that thing you're consuming?
That's a good point. And one of my good friends, Chad, owns a company called Proven Proteins. Him and his family has quite a few cows, and they take their beef and they ever so often they take it to the University of Utah for a full data analysis of what's in that meat. So riboflavins, vitamins, omega sixes, those kinds of things enters into that whole equation where it is a superior beef. Why is it a superior beef? He pastures it on with mostly grass that has these unique biological products on. You know, these complex microbials that I blend, and so do some of my friends, and we feed that throughout the year. And Chad does a really good job. But the University of Utah called him about a month ago, and he goes, "Hey, your beef has got ergothiamine." He says, "What's ergothiamine?" He goes, "They said we don't see that except in mushrooms." And ergothiamine is an enzyme, I think, or a protein that has an appetite to reduce cancer.
It's a structural rebuilding protein.
Yeah.
Because ergo is structural and theanine. So, and that's another question I have is, why are there fungicides if there are so many benefits with fungi? It's not a plant, it's not an animal, it's a hybrid of both that contains so much intelligence and can communicate it and spot it. I mean, it could do the job that we're all trying to do. Is that why?
Well, the whole microbial community is complex, but it adjusts itself, mostly when you have a plant involved in this. So we talked to Dave Olson yesterday on Teams call, and he talked about quorum sensing. Quorum sensing is a way that this bacteria and the fungi realign itself. So the bad guys are in the soil, Caleb, with all the bacteria. You bring enough beneficial microbes into that, will cause a quorum sensing to actually turn that around. So your bad guys will be less, your good guys will be more. And the good guys will actually, the beneficials, will actually consume the bad guys. So that's where a lot of these soil-borne diseases come from. Your plant diseases.
With the bad guys, is there good guys go in and then they kind of lessen the bad guys and then they strengthen good guys? But is there a way that the good guys can go in and reprogram and train the bad guys?
Well, they use it as a food source.
Okay.
So, you know, even though the bad guys will always be there, you got to have them in ratios where they're not dominant.
Okay. But they are necessary.
They're necessary.
Okay.
And so one of the podcasts that I've listened to of yours, it's an all-out war between the plant and the microbes.
Yeah. Um, you got to have this symbiotic relationship between the plant and the microbe as it goes through this growing phase.
Mm-hmm.
But these microbial communities, they don't shut down. That's the resiliency in it. So you have something positive. That positive um, microbial community will keep on something's repopulating all the time. And that's a beautiful thing of it. It's just we can't get ourselves out of the way of killing them off. Either recreational tillage, I call it. And that's why, like, the Curse Buster is a great tool that actually I think it mimics the buffalo hoof, where it's not a spike, but a blade that comes into that soil and actually turns and fractures that soil east and west, but also fractures that soil going down. And that brings up a lot of this. It introduces a lot of air and oxygen to those soils. If you don't have oxygen,
You don't have life.
you don't have life. And it's easy as that. So I really like working with the Curse Buster and Jim Martindale's group. And I know you have one now. I think that is pivotal in making this microbiome be stimulated. Um, if you ever go into a confinement building, we had confinement hogs, and the louvers are in the wintertime are down, you can tell immediately that they don't have enough oxygen, enough fresh air. They're not banging on the feeders. They got watery eyes, those kinds of things. That's kind of what we need to bring these observation points to agriculture, where that soil, you need to smell it, you need to observe it, you need to observe the wildlife around it, you need to observe what kind of weeds are growing. Then you also need to look at your management practices. Are we killing it off? Some of this is very detrimental, and it's leading into very high cost agriculture, and we've did it to ourselves. We've did it to ourselves. So when I talk about Ag One again, trying to have this digital agronomy database, and I'm working pretty close with Solvex on this as well, where you can go to the market, you can buy the product, you can also see the recommendations, and I'll just put a benchmark recommendation out there what works for me and what products work for me. I'm doing a research and development plot in Ohio. We're doing quite a few of them down here. We're going to all share information because grassroots people makes the biggest difference the fastest. It's not academia. It's not the NRCS department and the government people, because they're lost. They're totally lost. But agriculture has not stepped to the plate and said, no, that's wrong. You should be doing it a different way.
So everyone that's in row crop agriculture, animal agriculture, you should be. So if I was running a big corporation, there would be a pot of the budget in research and development, which would be trying to take care of the business in the future. And that's what you're talking about. I mean,
sure. And how do we get over this? Well, it's by us working together.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
That's a good way of putting it. You're totally right. One of the things that I'm trying to develop is some value-added markets. Everybody talks about it. You want higher nutrient-dense tomato, but there's nothing to go with it. There's no transparency how that tomato was growing or what its nutrient content is.
Mm-hmm.
I know Erin Martin's got the Food is Medicine campaign, and she does really good. That's kind of where we need to go in every state or even at a county level. You got FFA, you got 4-H, you got home ec departments, you got leverage your community, leverage your education platforms, your institutions to help us change this.
I feel like it is such a simple and obvious solution to the way that we're living, so much so that I'm scared that holistic living and food as medicine is going to have a hard time coming to fruition because it's not near as profitable as pharmaceutical drugs.
Well, it's not as easy.
I would argue that it's easier. I think it's easier to go outside and eat a dandelion rather than to get a doctor's appointment and then get prescription and then go pick it up and then pay it, when you could have just had a tea this morning that would have done the same thing.
So while you said that, I remember in Virgin Islands, they had what they call grass tea.
Mm.
And I said, what is grass tea? And they just take grass that's just growing into the rocks that's, thousands of years old. And they just clip it off and they boil it out and they make a tea out of it.
Do you ever try it?
They don't sell it. Everybody just does it.
Okay.
That was their morning
What
tea.
a way to connect with everything around you through putting it in you.
So in that regard, that plant is probably hundreds of years old, if not thousands. So that's embedded in that crack of that rock. How does it get moisture?
Great question.
It's the microbiome. Armin Miller has this in his presentation where he has a tree growing out of the side of a rock in a very low rainfall
What?
area. Yeah, why?
Hey, how?
It's
Not why, how?
It's the microbes. It's the biology it's that symbiotic relationship with the environment in that tree.
It adapted.
It adapted.
Yeah.
Adaptability is very important. And that is something that I admire about you, that I've noticed about you since we've been talking, is your level of adaptability and your integrity. And I think integrity is very important in agriculture right now. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of integrity. I'm seeing, okay, we got to fix this. We got to make money. We got to capitalize. We got to buy out this. We've got to do that, rather than a mission of, hey, I want, personally, we're all self-serving creatures. We want to thrive. But to truly thrive, we've got to pour that into our environment and our community. And then that just keeps going and growing, because you were talking yesterday about the importance of community and gathering together. And that is an art form that is lost. And I think when we lost that, agriculture started going down.
And kind of our whole communities.
So how do we get that back? Do we start growing our own? Does everybody start farming and gardening, and then you can start to see the difference?
How's your garden going?
Let's not talk about it. I'm feeding the deer just fine, but the carrots I was really hopeful for, they're radishes. So super pumped about that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons.
It won't be at my house, the hosting, but
so we've lived in, maybe we've said holistic. That's kind of a bad word in my mind, because we lived from point A till the 1930s, 20s, and it changed. So I think more of instead of holistic, more survival, because
primal.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's just kind of a different thing, but that's where it's at, isn't it?
I think I was thinking about this last night. Farmers got to understand that there's problems. When do you think a farmer says, I've got a problem? When his checkbook's about gone. When he can't get a loan. So we're in a paradigm shift. We talked about that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to start talking about a metabolic reprogramming of our minds that has to deal with metabolic reprogramming of our soils. Then we have opportunity with these value-added markets. Right now, I'm trying to create some material where I can go to Tyson, one of the big poultry guys here, and I say, look, we've got higher protein, higher nutrient density corn, soybeans. What does that do to your poultry operation, your herd health, your flock health? I'm sorry. What does that do? And why can't we take that, because it will be positive performance, why can't we take that to the grocery store? And Rachel, you're a label reader.
I am now, yeah.
That there's a little bit of transparency that this was fed this kind of grain that has that's been grown with less or no synthetics. Really, I'm kind of leaning towards no synthetics in the future, but it's about building this up. And no fungicides. I think fungicides are the first thing a producer needs to drop out of their program. If you use a fungicide now, you've got a problem. You don't have to use it. But there's all these biological principles you got to be able to prevent problems. That's what biology does. It prevents. But rarely will it ever rescue. If you get yourself into a position where you have to rescue a crop, you need to really sharpen your management skills, because you can prevent a lot of these problems. Not all of them, but most of them. But you got to think about that.
And that's that's a national security issue for food supply, food security. So,
well, what do you think of this Maha movement? I think the Maha movement is going to really put the spotlight on us producers to change. But we will not change unless that ethanol plant says, we will not accept your grains because you're growing it this way. You know, we've had it agriculture's had it too easy. I think we all got to step up to the plate as a community, and this is why we're here today, is trying to be able to educate, train, prove out these biological principles to make everybody reprogram their soils, to do a lot of the metabolic reprogramming. But it really starts with you, starts in the brain.
Our microbiomes need to be taken care of.
You know, one of the things that I want to do with Ag 1 is, you know, everybody goes to these agronomy meetings, gets these CCA credit. I'd like to have a different approach to that, where we can have a credit and for applicators, for retailers to hold a certain license, so I can take that into a value-added market. You know, these walnuts growing in Alusa, California, was produced this way with this kind of biology, with no fungicides, with no insecticides, and look at their quality. That's worth something to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
We've not tested that enough. Everybody wants cheap food. I want healthy food at a reasonable price.
Yeah. And you want to take it off, it'll come off the healthcare side of your budget.
Right.
Yeah.
It will. And I really believe your body is conditioned to eat calories and not nutrients. I think we used to.
Mm-hmm.
We used to say, "Hey, I've had enough nutrients. I'm full." And well, now we have to have calories.
Yeah, people are willing to just eat a brick to have something in their stomach, so they don't have to think about what they're putting in there. Back to what you were saying about, I think you might be the first person that I've heard in this industry say agriculture has been too easy. And I think that it's easy for someone who is solution based, as you are. But there's, I think it would be a lot easier if the representation were more aligned with the actual problems that are on the ground. Because the policies that are out there, I think that there's a lot of misalignment and making the farmer's job a lot more difficult than it. Like you've got to be smart enough to find the loophole to make something that should be easy work.
Correct. I, being solutions focused, I want to do a deep dive into Caleb's soil or another customer, and I want to start talking about metagenomic testing, irregular Haney testing. I want to start talking about SAP testing. A SAP is kind of the report card, what really is going on inside that plant. It's also a great management tool.
I didn't even know you can get sap from a plant. I thought that was just a tree thing. But trees can apparently grow out of rocks too. So it's
You take the oldest leaves and the newest leaves and you do a comparison.
Oh, okay.
So some nutrients the cations change differently than the anion.
Canines and anions. Cations.
Positive and negative charge ion.
Okay.
So what you're doing is measuring the nutrient fractions of the liquid at that point in time. There's also some leaf scanners I'm kind of liking. So I'm kind of working with those. And but what SAP brings to the table is we're deficient in this kind of mineral because we have too much of this kind of mineral. One of the things that kind of opened my mind is aluminum and chloride, how that overtakes that plant. And anytime you have sodium and chloride that enters that plant, it actually pushes potassium and nitrogen away.
Right. It's one of our big problems, and we don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So why is that? Well, you're missing the cytophore enzymes that are in there's cytophore enzymes in some of the bacterial or the biology products that I really like that actually surrounds that aluminum, surrounds that chloride. It seeks it out. We talk about programming biology to do certain functions. This gentleman, Dave Olson, has understood that for a long time, and he does a really good job where his biology seeks out that aluminum and that sodium, and it chelates it and it holds it so it's inert to the plant root. His dad, Gus, and him and I worked together a little bit down in Coachella Valley, Imperial Valley of California. Super hot, high zodiac soils, just a lot of salt in that area. And there's fields there that they wouldn't even grow weed. Well, after about a year and a half, 2 years of using some of his products, we surrounded those cations, the sodium, and the sodium was inert, and they could actually grow really good crops by then. So when we talk about what is your yield limiting factor, we're going to bring that out in these trials. I mean, that is a problem. Aluminum is a problem. Sodium is a problem in our plants.
So what's being put in there and attaching? It's kind of acting like an organic polymer. But when it's gathering around this, what is that doing in the soil in terms of mass? How much space is it taking?
It's surrounding that, and it gives it the ability for the water to flush it down below the roots.
So is it hydro repellent? Like, is it, and it's not going to take it in, and it's just going to say, hey, I've got an umbrella?
Well, you need to do it every year to grab a hold of it and try to get it to flush out through the soil. That's kind of how we did the thing. Those tests down in Coachella Valley, Imperial Valley, is that we applied it, and then we did a lot of intensive irrigation and actually pushed that out. But again, you have to treat your irrigation water. If it's high in salt, you're just
Yeah.
you're just perpetuating the problem again. So there's kind of those kinds of things. We have high aluminum soils, not so much in my area because we get plenty of rainfall, but for my customers down in Texas, that's a problem. And they didn't know they had that kind of problem until we started doing this SAP testing, these metagenomic testing. So you start looking back at their metagenomics, they lack air, they lack oxygen, they lack the microbes that are beneficial to keep that aluminum quiet. So it's very complex what I do, what you guys are doing. We work as a team here and we try to make this roadmap to profitability by working together.
So, Rachel, that's all a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, Mark, any final points you want to pull in, or Rachel, any?
Well, let's
You
solve.
got all these questions over here.
Right. Let's solve some problems.
Yeah. That's what you're best at. Okay. You know what? How about you pick a number 1 through 10?
Well, I don't know.
No,
Well, hang on. Let's go to number 1. You know what?
What single decision in your agricultural or rural development work had the greatest long-term impact, and what drove that choice?
Okay, this is very close to me. In 1999, I was planting corn, and I was using an organophosphate called Force. And of course, you're always trying to get as much product in that plant or in that insecticide box. So you're hitting it with your hip because it's a hip high to kind of get quite a few in there so you can get some more acres. And some of it shook out and into my pocket, just like a teaspoon of it. I didn't know about it. Went home later that night and I was in intensive care for 6 days. I had a stroke. This is the beauty of entrepreneurship and small business. My ag retailer, which was an independent, that next morning he went around to all the other farmers and who had that product, and he picked up everybody's insecticide and he says, "You will not use it ever again." So it was pretty pivotal. And that's why entrepreneurship, grassroots people, has ethics. We need to stick to those ethics.
And that's integrity, safety, community, and care, which are necessary. All right, next question, Mark. Where do you believe U.S. agricultural policy is most out of alignment with the on-the-ground realities for farmers in rural communities?
Policymakers don't know.
Oh, yep, perfect. Period. There it is. Well, yeah.
They are so disconnected. And I'm glad that the current administration is thinking about moving the USDA to the Midwest. Is that right?
I don't know.
Have you heard that? I thought they were trying to set up shop in Indianapolis.
I thought they were trying to create an ag hub in Arizona.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard that. But, they don't know. And we as agriculture, we don't express our voice. I'm good friends with people that are on 4 or 5 different kinds of boards for agriculture, and they just go to meetings. It's research, and it's meetings that's unproductive. They don't bring anything, and I'm really worried about the checkoff dollars that everybody's contributing to. They're focused on marketing, but they really need to back up and say what drives the market. Because the corn should not be a bushel of number 2 corn. It should be a bushel of number 2 corn plus its
Properties.
its properties, its value that it brings. So that bushel is going to be different to Tyson than what would be to the ethanol.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think is the biggest threat for global food security, or even national?
We are in a pivotal point. I mean, this is painful. What's the weak point right out here is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We can do so much better, and we need to have an ag lender in the room. When an ag lender's in my grower summits, I call it, it's like when I was a kid, the school board or the principal or the superintendent would come in to our classroom in 8th grade. Everybody kind of sets up,
Mm-hmm.
they're the big dogs. Well, so's the ag lenders. They're the ones that holds the cards to how we're going to progress in the future. So with ag policy, I really believe if we can determine as a team how you can get better crops growing. I don't use the term regenerative hardly ever. I use the term transformation because we have to change everything. We got to transition into something that's valuable to our health, to our water quality, to our environment, and to our farmers. I think the ag policy really needs to work on different terms on the loans. If you're borrowing at 6%, if you start raising these crops in a transformation type way, you'll get a better percent discount on the term loan or different terms altogether.
But it would be more expensive because the quality would be better, right? So the percentage might go down on the loan, but then the cost that you're putting into what you're taking the loan out for would be more expensive. So you're making up for it, but it's money back into your pocket through.
So Rachel, that's when I opened up his crop plans, and I decided he was up in the clouds. The reason I decided that is not the product list. There's more return back. It's a better working margin, and that's what we need. So it doesn't have to be more expensive. It could be cheaper, couldn't it, Mark?
Well, I base my recommendations not so much cost per acre. I say cost per bushel yield.
Right.
And you made the comment the other day, and we were talking about it, where seed plant protection products, fertilizer should not reach over 30%.
Yeah.
And my recommendations was what?
So, in the 30s.
In the 30s. But
Yeah.
the conventional system is how much?
In the 50s.
In the 50s.
So that's what, that it wasn't the product list, and it's kind of some different products,
Yeah.
but it's, that's what woke me up. So not always does it have to be more expensive. And, here we're going to test out this. We've met Mark late in the season, but we're going to test him out on some spots where we've already got some things going. I'm excited about that.
I think there's a misconnection with the consumer mindset that better, like premium products, organic, non-GMO, that automatically in my mind is saying, oh, you're going to be spending $2 extra on that. And that's okay. But then I would assume that it's more expensive to make those products.
Yeah.
And margins, hey.
You don't do numbers.
No.
So, well, what do you got in summation here? we've gone an hour in this. So.
Summation.
Yeah.
Did you just invent that word?
Yeah.
In summary, I like every good conversation, you leave with more questions than you came in with.
Yeah.
Because I think that something, Mark, that you do really well is encourage critical thinking. And if you don't have an answer, you're gonna be very close to one. And it's so fun to workshop this. And it's you give me hope. Since being in ag, I was like, oh, we're doomed. Don't ever do this. Blah, I'm selling. But when you look at a problem, you've got to think of what's the opposite of a problem and a bad attitude, a good attitude, and an opportunity. And you embody that. And I think that we are on the right track. I'm so hopeful. And I'm excited for experimentation. There's a lot of innovation happening in ag right now. And I feel like we're on the brink of it, you know? And I think that it's important to take care of ourselves, connect around us with the people, with the source, with ourselves, with our health. And to go from there, I think can't really do anything but positive. So if you had one thing to say to our viewers today, because we've got to make a change, what's one simple change everyone can make in their life today for a better tomorrow?
You mean from the agriculture perspective?
Let's go agriculture and let's go general. Let's go agriculture and let's go consumer. So let's give a word for Caleb and a word for me.
Well, the consumer's our boss. This is how you vote with your dollar.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want the Cracker Jack that's got the chemistry, don't buy the Cracker Jack that has all the chemistry. Buy a better form of snack, I guess you'd say. It's real important to get into our education systems. I think we're really missing the boat in vocational agriculture and vocational ways to teach. I think every high school, every grade school should have a garden.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a greenhouse. I know in my area, some of the larger schools, they all have small greenhouses. And the students has so many hours of class that they have to take. And the vegetables, and one place even has some chickens. They produce and they give to students to take home for Friday. So like 100% attendance on Friday.
Oh yeah.
They take it home.
My mom would say, "Oh no, she's sick. She's not going."
But that's ability to. We lost our ability for generosity.
Mm-hmm.
To even care about our neighbor or who lives down the street. We're all. So President Putin one time had a conference, and what little I know about Russia, but I could figure it out. He was asked by an American reporter, "Why don't you have GMOs in Russia?" And his comment was, "I don't have a health system like America has."
Bingo.
Have you seen Americans? They are unhealthy, and their cognitive thinking skill is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Depression, lots of diseases with the heart. I don't want my culture to do that. I want to protect my culture and be healthy and to be able to think cognitively correct. So getting back to your questions, we need to take a strong agriculture. People with minds like us really needs to take a stronger presence in our local government and really lean on our state legislators as well, and to helping us create this positive environment for agriculture. I know in my area, big shout out to University of Findlay, they're wanting to start a school of agriculture, and they've kind of tapped me on the shoulders saying, "How do we start this ag school?" And I said, you got to be solutions focused. And I guess that's what I bring to the table is I've just got a lot of experience in solutions. And that's what they're doing. So they have different departments. They have biology department, chemistry department. And the dean of students was all at my grower summit. First time they ever had one at the University of Findlay. So I had 75 producers show up. And Ryan Noss, the gentleman I told you about, we grow with, he brings his microscope that he can put on the board and on the screen. And we took a little bit of we took an alfalfa root from my producer who I've been with for now 2 years. He's an organic dairy, but he's not certified organic. But we just took that alfalfa root in January, colder than heck, and Brian took it and washed the dirt off and put it in a slide, and you can see all these fungal communities working around. And you see this bacteria in there too, and the fungi was actually eating that bacteria.
Oh,
You can see the
wow.
protozoas moving around in there, all these beneficials, and he says, this tells me what Mark is suggesting to this guy really worked. And the beauty of it is that his name was Laban. That's that's the farmer's name. He does everything he can not to kill that fungal community. He doesn't use potassium chloride. He doesn't use any herbicides on it, or any fungicides, or any insecticides. It's beautiful alfalfa, and that's what he feeds his cows. And to be able to do that in front of a bunch of educators who are the dean of biology and chemistry saying, I did not know biology did that.
Yeah.
So we as grassroots people educate those who needs to educate others. They need to step back and come to us, and we need to form this consortium of people
Mm-hmm.
who has experience in this to talk about it. Just like yesterday with Armin and David, we got a lot of knowledge out of that, and we'll work on a podcast with them sometime in the future and put it on your website so people can really learn. There's a lot to learn. I mean, we are drinking from a fire hose, but I've been in it for a lot of years. But the problem is with all these biological inputs and companies coming to market, they just want to make money. They forgot about you as a producer. And we all want to make money, don't get me wrong. But they got to have value, and they've got to talk about that system. They got to be that dairy consultant that can not only talk about genetic potential of that dairy, but they need to be able to change everything inside that dairy to get that genetic potential. Money will follow you then. If you just go out there to try to sell something, money will never follow you.
Follows the proof and the education.
Sure.
Yep. All right. So it's my turn, huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to steal part of his, but my thought is we know very little. I mean, really, we know very little. So just do that critical thinking, you know. And yes, there's a lot of smart people, but be careful who you listen to.
Yeah.
So that's
always ask why.
Yeah. So, well, what about you, Rachel?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Word of advice for today: go stand in the sun for at least 10 minutes.
Barefooted.
Barefoot if you want, yeah. But just take a moment of silence and listen to the life around you so that you can kind of appreciate the life around you and below you that you have no idea is happening. There's communities down there, microbiome communities, and they're stronger than the communities up here. So if we took a note out of their book to see what's working, to see what's not working, to gather around a problem and prevent it from getting larger and spreading to a root, that's my advice, is to go connect and then come back with the gifts that God's given us all around.
All right. Well, I guess that sums up this podcast, and I appreciate you coming. Appreciate you doing this. So I have no clue where we're going, but we're going somewhere quick.
I feel like it's up.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wanting to do is really drill down what the problems are, just like I said with yield limiting. Then I also want to be able to verify that in laboratories. I'm working with a lady, and she's part of my team, Dr. Jane Fife, and she started Monarch Ag, and it's going to be a very detailed laboratory, and we're going to do a lot of different testing that the market doesn't really understand, but she does. And then we're also going to make the product. So now we have what's yield limiting, verify what is yield limiting, make the product. But we're going to become more prescriptive. So in cotton, in Dad's field down by the bottoms, we'll have a different prescription products than Caleb's cotton on the other north end.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where we're going to go.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, we always need more followers and likes and subscribes, and we'd even like a few comments, wouldn't we? So
Yeah.
So we'd appreciate any of that. And with that, I guess I appreciate y'all's time.
Certainly a pleasure to be here. Every time I come, I always get enlightened, and it's a great area of Tennessee, and you guys have so much potential here and a great opportunity. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of this, and it'd be great to hang out with you this summer and do some meetings and do some education. And
all right, thanks.
Thank you.
You.